Talk about low-budget flights, no food or movies? I'm out of here. I like running better. Welcome back, YouTube viewers, to another video. So, we now return to the Transformers. Okay, so, since Transformers 1 is now out on digital, which is too soon if you ask me, I think we all can all agree on that, I thought, why not finally rank every single Transformers movie? And when I say this, I mean every theatrically released Transformers movie. So no, Predacons Rising, the TV movie from Transformers Prime, will not be on this list. But if it were, I will tell you what spot it would be if it were here. So anyway, yep, just all 9 theatrically released Transformers movies ranked. This is just my opinion. I am sure everyone's gonna have different opinions on a lot of these, but without further ado, let's do it to it and dive on in. Transform and roll out. Okay, number 9, Transformers: Age of Extinction. This is easily my least favorite of the Bayformers movies. Okay, elephant in the room. Yeah, I'm sure we all know that one specific scene with the humans that we all hate very much. I don't really want to talk about that. But 2, Mark Wahlberg's character, Cade Yeager, he's so much worse than Sam. Um, he seems almost sort of obsessive, and it's just weird, and he's so unlikable and mean. And then you get stuff like Optimus Prime, who's okay. Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon, especially Revenge of the Fallen, really turned Optimus Prime into a psychopath for some reason. But this just pushed it once again with the whole "I said I would never kill humans, but whoever is behind this is going to die." I mean, yeesh. When Peter Cullen said there are a few lines in Bayformers he never wanted to say, but he had to, or else he'd get kicked out, I'm sure that is the line he means. I mean, it was really cool to see Frank Welker play Megatron finally get to play the character in live action, or Galvatron in this case, but still, it's cool. Of course, CGI is still great, action is great, but I mean, it just has other stuff I don't like, such as the whole... I think the idea of, humans trying to hunt down Transformers actually does make sense. And since they're being held by lockdown, it does make sense that they'd be able to do it, which, okay, yeah, also, Lockdown from Transformers Animated is the main villain of one of the live-action movies. That is such a big deal. I mean, he doesn't look anything like Lockdown, or sound anything like him. And you could say, oh, well, he's played by some random voice actor. They wouldn't bring in a random voice actor for a big-budget movie, but... he was played by Lance Henriksen in Transformers Animated, and he was actually asked if he wanted to be in this movie, and he said, yeah, sure. He would have loved to do it again. But, of course, the big executives at Paramount didn't want him for some reason, even though he actually is kind of famous. But anyway, this movie just has a lot of problems. Stuff like the whole, I'll never understand how humans are able to replicate Cybertronian technologies. Just what? I mean, these guys are not mech from Transformers Prime. I mean, there it made a lot more sense because even then they still couldn't create actual transforming Cybertronians. They could kind of do it, but this is just too weird. The humans are really unlikable. Optimus Prime is not well portrayed, much like the scene where he finally gets his via red and blue color scheme and everything. That's cool and all, but just this movie is not good. I definitely understand why after this, almost half of the audience for the next movie that showed up, if you look at the box office, was only half of this, because after this, no one really wanted to see another one of these movies. But as it stands, I don't think this movie is as terrible as everyone says, but it's still pretty bad. 8. Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. Yeah, Revenge of the Fallen. Okay, yeah, first I talk about the whole "give me your face" bit, which is just so over the top and stupid. Or how about the fact that Jetfire, who is actually a pretty interesting character, he says how he's never done a thing worth doing in his life, but then he sacrifices himself so Optimus Prime can have the ability to fly. And then he flies for barely any time at all and then just gets rid of his jetpacks for some reason. Yeah, that sure was a good use of a guy who literally died to save you. Optimus Prime's death is just not handled well. I don't. This whole blackout Grindor thing, however that goes. The human stuff is not as funny here as it was before. I don't like the whole stuff with that Pretender-esque character, Alice or whatever. It's just not good. Or the Fallen. It was cool for them to bring in the Fallen from the Dreamwave comics, but I mean, his design is a little weird. It's not awful or anything, but I just don't really like it that much. Soundwave's design is so ugly. At least he's voiced by Frank Welker. And I don't know. There's one other thing I'm thinking of about this movie that I didn't like. Oh yeah, why are there only 7 primes instead of 13? Look, I understand that this is not going to adhere to all the lore and stuff, but if you're going to include the primes, why are you only saying there's 7 of them and not 13? That doesn't make any sense. I don't. This isn't the worst thing ever, but it's not very good. Revenge of the Fall is a pretty big disappointment, but then again, um, it's worth noting that this movie was made during the 2008 or 7 or something writer's strike, so it makes sense that it was really affected. But as it stands, it's got to go pretty low on this list. It's not very good. Number 7, Transformers: The Last Knight. Yep, I don't think Transformers: Last Knight is the worst thing man has ever created. Unlike every single other person on this planet, huh? Okay, The Last Knight is not a very good movie. I can acknowledge that. It's got a lot of problems. But honestly, it's definitely not even close to the worst of Bayformers. I think people really hate this movie way too much. Yes, it has some really dumb stuff. Why does Hot Rod have a French accent or Russian or whatever? I can't remember. That's stupid. He looks absolutely nothing like Hot Rod. The whole Bumblebee gaining his voice back out of nowhere is completely ridiculous. Yes, Theoremist did a really good video explaining it, and I believe that and all, but let's be honest. This was never planned out. It just so that theory just so happens to make sense. Um, so the whole thing of, the Transformers, and King Arthur, all that stuff does sound kind of interesting. There's just one problem. What does that have to do with Transformers? I remember hearing some people say that they have a theory that this wasn't even made to be a Transformers movie. This whole plot about a long time ago, creatures from another world visited Merlin and gave him his staff, and they were Knights of the Round Table. And in the future, Merlin's descendant, who doesn't is around, she doesn't believe in magic at all, but this guy who does believe in magic and knows all these creatures helps her out. They save the world from the magical creatures or whatever. That actually sounds like a really interesting fantasy blockbuster movie, but if then they just said, "Oh guys, we really need a new plot for the next Transformers movie. Let's just take this random fantasy movie we have on the back burner and mush it together with Transformers." That did not turn out well at all. Quintessa, well, it's cool that there's a villain named after the Quintessons. It's just too weird a villain. Or Unicron is set up in this movie. And he just doesn't do. Nothing really comes out of it because I know this was supposed to get a sequel and then it didn't. I mean, the fans are making a sequel, Rise of Unicron. I'm really excited for that, but this movie's just a complete mess. I will say the humans are better here than they were in the last one. I like the C-3PO-esque guy, and as for the Decepticons, well, it's true they don't do much and they aren't the best. I like that there aren't 10,000 of them, so you can actually tell them apart. I mean, finally, in the live-action movies, Frank Welker gets to voice Megatron. Not Galvatron, Megatron. And he has a pretty cool design, too. I just think this one is somewhat entertaining. It's got some really bad parts, too, like Squeaks. Who cares about Squeaks? Paper Plane just did a video on him. Transformers fail mascot. But anyway, just bad movie, but not the worst thing ever. I think there's some entertainment to be found here. And, yeah, okay. Number 6, Bumblebee. Now, does this mean that since Bumblebee is only at number 6, it means I love all these next films? No, I don't. I don't think Bumblebee is as good as everyone says. I wouldn't even call it good. It's decent, a 6 out of 10. It's got more good than bad, but Bumblebee just never really appealed to me. I've seen this one multiple times. I was hoping on my rewatch it would get better, but I guess it did, but I don't know. Something about Bumblebee just doesn't click with me, and I think I know why. Look, I knew the movie was not going to live up to the opening on Cybertron. That was awesome. But after you get something like that, and then even the first stuff on Earth with Bumblebee crashing on Earth, being chased by the military, meeting Blitzwing, that stuff was really good. I like that a lot. But then you get into the main plot, and the movie just quickly loses my interest. And Filmento, it's a good channel, did a great video on this. It was called Bumblebee, How Character Destroyed a Movie. It's part of his Anatomy of Failure series. He said that Bumblebee is not necessarily a bad movie, and yeah, you do care about the characters. But the reason to care how character destroyed a movie is because the movie spends so much time on these characters, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but the characters don't have any goal. They have personality, but they have no goal. What is the plot here? The villains have a goal, the Decepticons? But I mean, they don't have that much screen time, and people always say how great Shatter and Dropkick are. Yeah, they have cool designs, or they kill Cliffjumper. I like how they actually deceive people, Decepticons. But I mean, what are their personalities? They don't need to be super deep or anything. But I mean, Shatter is just I am evil and deceive, and Dropkick is the most bare bones of characters ever. Sure, he's kind of entertaining, but he's just I like to blow things up. Why do people act like these are such interesting, great villains? They're really not. They're so basic and boring. And then as for Bumblebee, yeah, he's not the main character despite this movie being named after him. And him not being able to speak is just something I never really liked. And it's just little bits like, remember the bit where he's in the kitchen, he just starts messing around or whatever? Yeah, it's kind of funny, but what is the point of that scene? It just exists to pad out this movie. Or, because yeah, again, I like the stuff with the military. I think John Cena is actually a pretty good actor here. I like all that stuff. But the main plot with Bumblebee and Charlie, who is a decent human character, but it's not interesting. Because so little happens until the very end. Or, remember the scene where Bumblebee's eyes turn red and he starts shooting at people? That is not even a homage. That is just straight up ripped out of the Iron Giant. It's so shameless. At the end of the day, though, this movie did have a pretty cool climax, a nice emotional ending, and you know what? I was so excited, as I'm sure everyone else was, during that final scene where Bumblebee reunites with Optimus Prime and the Autobots. We can see the Autobots descending onto Earth. Did that movie, the sequel to this, live up to it? Well, I'll talk about it later on this list. Anyway, Bumblebee is decent. I still think it was more good than bad, but ultimately, this one just really isn't that interesting to me. Number 5, Transformers Dark of the Moon. Funnily enough, this is, I think, the first Transformers thing I ever saw, other than Rescue Bots when I was a little younger. I used to have this on DVD for some reason. A friend gave it to me. I watched it one time, and I did not understand anything. I didn't watch the first 2 movies. I didn't know who Megatron was, which is really weird. I didn't know who Ironhide was or anything, but I still ended up really enjoying this. It's not anything super special, but I like Dark of the Moon. The action is so good. The story is genuinely really interesting. It says, why haven't humans been to the moon since 1972? Or how there's an ulterior motive of why man went to the moon so quickly. Why? Because they found some kind of alien spacecraft there that was Sentinel Prime. Continuing the franchise tradition, which continues into another movie on this list, of Sentinel Prime either being a jerk or a straight up villain. I like the stuff with done with Decepticons here. The whole mystery conspiracy thing is done really well. And even though this was the first thing I ever really saw from this franchise, I genuinely cared about the characters by the end. I mean, during the bit where Q dies, I was actually kind of upset. I thought, oh, why did Q have to die? I kind of like that guy. Or I knew Bumblebee wasn't going to die, but I still kind of felt bad when he's about to get blasted in the head and killed. The whole final battle in Chicago is so great. The whole highway chase is really cool. Excuse me for a second. Okay, back to the video. So, of course, if there are problems with this, it's that, well, one, it does still have its share of Michael Bayism, as we say. Not as many as Revenge of the Fallen or Age of Extinction, but still got him. Shockwave, well, he does have a cool design. Not only do I wish he looked more purple and not gray, he does nothing. He only has one line of dialogue. It's pathetic. Or how about, Optimus Prime being a bloodthirsty psychopath again. And originally, that wasn't even what was supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen is that after Sentinel Prime is killed, which, yeah, should Optimus have killed Sentinel Prime? That's a big talking point as to whether or not he was justified there. Um, I, I don't know. Oh, by the way, great performance by Leonard Nimoy as Sentinel Prime, returning to the Transformers franchise. But, uh, so the final confrontation between Optimus and Megatron. The original script, it was when Megatron says, "Who would you be without me?" Which, by the way, fans would animate this. It's on Furious channel. Optimus just drops the weapon and thinks about, yeah, who would he be without Megatron? He spent so many years, so many years in this endless war fighting Megatron that without him, who even is he? So he and the Decepticons have a truce. The Autobots will stay on Earth as their new home, and the Decepticons will go and rebuild Cybertron. But the two sides should something like probably never meet each other again. That's a really good ending. But then Michael Bay saw that script and said, or no, I don't even think it was that Michael Bay saw it and said it was too lame. I think what happened is that it got leaked, so Michael Bay thought, oh my gosh, we have to change the ending so people don't know what it is. But no one, it's just stupid. Megatron says, who would you be without me, Prime? And then Optimus just says, time to find out. And then he runs up to this guy who can't even really defend himself at all, and tears off his head and tosses it to the floor. Sure, it's a cool looking shot with some great music, but it's just not good. Other than that, though, I still really like Dark of the Moon, flaws and all. It's an entertaining blockbuster. I can definitely understand why it made over $1 billion. Number 4, Transformers: Rise of the Beasts. The first of these movies I got to see in theaters. You do not understand just how excited I was for Rise of the Beasts. I remember back when it was announced in 2021, we got the filming updates and the cast updates, something like Peter Cullen's returning as the voice of Optimus Prime in a movie, Beast Wars. It was finally getting to see the Autobots land on Earth after the end of Bumblebee. I was just so excited for this movie. And then it got delayed by a year. But we slowly waited until we finally got that trailer. And I was excited. So I finally went into the theater, watched the movie, in a theater that was basically empty because I saw it on a Sunday morning when there was almost no one there. Which, when people say no one saw this movie, that's not really true. If you look at the box office numbers, yeah, it's not as high as some of the others, but a lot of people still saw this one. But anyway, so I walked out of the theater, and I had a smile on my face. I enjoyed it. This is not cinema or anything. This is not the peak of Transformers, but I really liked Rise of the Beasts. I think people are a little too harsh on it. It's got issues, yes. ILM was animating a certain other Transformers movie, so they couldn't do this. So the CGI here is not the best, but it's not awful. It actually spends more time with the Transformers, the characters you came here to see. They aren't the most deep of characters or anything, but I actually cared about them. I thought Mirage's whole bond with Noah was actually really good. Noah is easily the best human character in these Transformers movies, by the way. I actually cared about his arc because it was interesting, but it also didn't take away from the Transformers too much. Bumblebee being taken out of the movie for a while was, I think, a really smart move, and yeah, because of that, we got to see some more of the other characters. And sadly, the other characters aren't handled the best, so Airazor is actually written quite well. I thought her arc was really interesting. But she doesn't even transform once. She's just a bird for the whole time. Optimus Primal is handled quite well, and he's voiced by Ron Perlman, who did play the character before, and he actually does have voice acting experience. He did a good job. But Optimus Primal's design is boring. Because the actual design, I guess, the shape is fine. It's good, I'd say, when in robot mode, but it just has no color. All you need to do is give him that blue head, put the red spot, the white. It would still look so cool. But no, Cheetor does he even speak? Same thing with Rhinox. I think Cheetor has one single line of dialogue. He doesn't even look that good either. Rhinox, I don't even think he speaks. I think he had one line of dialogue that was cut from the film. It's just RC is a pretty good design, but so does Bumblebee. Mirage, I like Mirage a lot. He was actually pretty funny. As I said before, he was good. Wheeljack, yeah. They should have either not called him Wheeljack, or they should have changed changed the head, or they should have changed the head and took away that dumb accent. It was so annoying. The villains are pretty good. Yeah, they don't do much, but I thought they were a pretty good threat. I wish they had a few more lines, though. Unicron being in this surprised everyone. I just remember seeing that second trailer, and then it just shows him, and I'm thinking, wait, what the? And then you just have a Mirage saying, yeah, his name's Unicron. He eats planets. I'm just thinking, okay, what is this movie? And honestly, I gotta say, Unicron was actually handled pretty well, even though he's barely in it. But another disappointment with this movie is that they kept telling us that, guys, the Predacons are going to be in it. So we were all thinking we're going to get to see Beast Wars Megatron and Black Arachnia and Dinobot maybe and Tarantulas and Scorponok, Terrorsaur, Waspinator. No, there were no Predacons. What? Oh, those non-sentient scorpion drones? Those don't count. Those aren't Predacons. Um, I gotta say, Optimus Prime in this movie, mixed bag. On the one hand, I have to say this was Peter Cullen's best performance since Fall of Cybertron. He really did a good job with. I think this is because while the script he's given isn't great, I think it's better than what he was given in Transformers Prime because most of what he was given in Transformers Prime, much as I like that show, is just stoic leader that says exposition. Here he's given an actual character arc sort of, and well, I do think him killing Scourge the way he does was too violent at the end. He's definitely a lot less brutal than he was during the Michael Bay films. He feels more like Optimus Prime. And I just like this movie. It's not anything spectacular, but I walked away from that theater pretty satisfied. It's too bad if we get a sequel, it'll be a G.I. Joe crossover. We want to see the Autobots and Maximals. What I want for a sequel, Autobots and Maximals versus Predacons. That's what I want to see. I'm sure that's what a lot of other people want to see. No one wants G.I. Joe and Transformers except for Lorenzo D. Bonaventura, that producer everyone hates. But anyway, Rise of the Beasts, good movie. Number 3, Transformers 2007. You know, it's funny. The franchise would not be in the same place it is today without this, not even close. So how is this movie? Well, Transformers 2007 is pretty good, I'd say. Well, a lot of people don't really like the Bay movies. Most of them say, yeah, original was not bad. And yeah, Transformers 2007 is a pretty good movie. Well, it's got its faults, the Michael Bayisms, that sort of thing. But one, while I do wish it showed the Transformers more, I mean, we're supposed to be sad that Jazz dies, but outside of having a cool design, he has, 3 lines? Anyway, the human stuff is actually pretty entertaining. The CGI is great, the action is great. Optimus Prime is actually portrayed well. There's no secondary foe, so it's just Autobots versus Decepticons, and there aren't 10,000 Decepticons, so they're portrayed as being really scary and menacing. Megatron is a pretty great vocal performance by Hugo Weaving. Peter Cullen returned to play Optimus Prime, did a really good job. I mean, who doesn't love his final speech, "My name is Optimus Prime, and I send this message to all Autobots seeking refuge among the stars. We are here, and we are waiting." And it kicks into the song that everyone keeps memeing, if Blank came out in 2007. Also, I just like the story, it's the kid discovers an alien, and becomes friends with him, and gets caught up in all this stuff. And it's just pretty good. Again, I like the whole, kind of like Dark of the Moon, it has this really interesting whole kind of conspiracy story going on, where you get to see different parts and how they all interconnect at the end. It's all really cool. And the way it ties into stuff like, Megatron being found and frozen in ice a long time ago, and all of Earth's modern technology was reverse engineered through him, like in Transformers Animated. This is just a really good blockbuster movie, and it's pretty entertaining, and I'd say it's quite good. There's a reason this movie spawned such a huge franchise. Number 2, Transformers the movie, all the way back from 1986, the OG. Oh boy, what is there to be said about this one that hasn't already been said 1,000 times? This one is a cult classic for a reason. It did so much for this franchise. It was the first time Transformers was presented with a truly serious story, which we get a lot of these days. Have for a while. The Matrix leadership is introduced. We get Unicron, Galvatron, Hot Rod, and RC and Ultra Magnus and Springer and Cup and Blur. We get to see, Wreck-Gar too. We got all the stuff with the Quintessons. Oh, and of course, the fact that this movie's original theatrical poster has been copied 10,000 times. And so this movie's been quoted to death by this franchise so many times. One shall stand, one shall fall. What are some other ones? Megatron must be stopped, no matter the cost. Till all are one. But there's a reason that it's because those are really good quotes. And sure, if you didn't watch the cartoon before this, you won't care about this movie. You won't care that Optimus Prime dies. But if you did, you will. There's a reason this movie shook up so many kids back 38 years ago. Wow, this movie's. Wow, it's been a long time. Because kids really got attached to these characters, not just Optimus Prime, but everyone else who dies. Ironhide, Prowl. Because even though these characters weren't the deepest or whatever, kids just like them. Because why wouldn't you get attached to them? It makes sense people got so upset. But then, of course, it also means that people have forever hated Hot Rod, which is a real shame. I like Hot Rod. But he's done a lot of good for this franchise. It's really important, and there's a reason we all respect it so much. Well, unless you're the people who wrote Transformers Deviations, but it's whatever. Point is, but is it a good movie? Yeah, it's good. I like it. It's really entertaining. It's cool. It's got beautiful animation. Yeah. I've seen reviews from when this movie came out from these dumb critics. Okay, I understand if they wouldn't care about it, but it's pretty clear they were just idiots. They said that the animation is bad. What? How is the animation in this movie bad? The only thing you would have even had to compare it to back then was Disney, I guess. And this definitely lived up to Disney back then. It's probably better than the Disney movies at the time. And they say stuff like, Unicron is such a boring and generic villain. All he wants to do is destroy the world. We look at Disney villains who are so complex, and it's thinking that. Look, I don't want to insult those old Disney villains. There's nothing wrong with them, but how are they any more complex than Unicron? Seriously, how can anyone say that with a straight face? Anyway, though, yeah, the Transformers the movie is just really good. I gotta meet who's it? Yeah, I gotta meet Stan Bush and Vince DiCola, the guys who did the music for this movie at TFCon. Really cool to meet them, just hear about their stories. This movie is just so special to West fans. But of course, it's not the best. What is number one? Well, the number one Transformers movie is an answer that surprises no one, and that is Transformers 1, released last month only. Yeah, I've already reviewed this film before. Everyone's talked about it. Shame it's a box office disappointment. It's not getting saved. We're not getting a sequel, unfortunately. But as it stands, Transformers 1 is phenomenal. I would seriously put this in the top 10 greatest animated films of all time. The visuals are outstanding. If Rise of the Beast had to look the way it did because they were working on this, totally fair. This is amazing. The voice actors do way better jobs than you would expect. I mean, I think we all agree that Chris Hemsworth is actually really good as Orion Pax and Optimus Prime. Brian Tyree Henry is Megatron at D16, Scarlett Johansson is Elita 1, John Hamm is Sentinel Prime, or the best one, of course, Steve Buscemi is Starscream. The music, Brian Tyler returned from Transformers Prime. I didn't mention this in my review even though I knew about it, but he actually played part of the Transformers Prime theme in this movie. It tells such an interesting origin story that's done super well. It's very well paced, it's efficient, it's funny. Well, Bumblebee's not funny, but sometimes he's funny anyway. But yeah, it's funny, it's action-packed, it's got really cool visuals, it's got some really great drama. Transformers 1 is everything a Transformers fan could ever want out of these movies. And this is the movie we waited 40 years for. Or I guess, I don't know, 17, 38, depending on how you want to look at it. Anyway, yeah, Transformers 1 is easily the best Transformers movie. It's no competition. So in conclusion, we better get that sequel, Paramount. I know we're probably not going to, but we need to. We need to finally see Optimus Prime and Megatron as Autobots and Decepticons beat each other up on the big screen in animation. This went on for longer than I thought it would, so anyway, comment down below what you thought. That's all for now, and as always, keep on juicing.